Hey guys, it is me, Jacqueline. For today's video, I have my least favorite books of 2016. I only have 7 to show you guys. I actually don't have them in physical copy, so I will be just posting a picture on the screen and talking about them. But if you found that these were books you very much enjoyed, don't take that into harsh consideration. Just because I didn't enjoy these books doesn't mean you won't. I'll be sort of describing them and why exactly I didn't enjoy them, so maybe that actually might be something you would like. Also, I have a video of me talking about my favorite books of 2016, which I will leave in the cards as well as down below in the description box. Anyway, let's go on to my least favorite books. So the first book I have is Passenger by Alexandra Bracken. For me, this was actually one of my most anticipated book releases for 2016. Before reading this, I had read Alexandra Bracken's Darkest Minds trilogy. It's one of my favorite dystopian trilogies, so I was super excited for a new book from her, but I found this fell very flat. I tried on 3 separate occasions to get into this book, and finally the third time I did push through it, but really, for me, I felt lost 75% in the novel just because the writing style is beautiful, but it didn't keep me grounded to the story. Also, the characters weren't my favorites, so I didn't really feel connected to them. In total, I won't be continuing on with this duology. I know the second book just came out, but I'm not really interested in it because I couldn't even get through the first book. The next book I have is Kaleidos, and this is by Gail McHugh. You guys know I love my new adult romance novels, but for me, this just wasn't my cup of tea. This reminded me a ton of one of my least favorite books, which is Thoughtless by S.C. Stevens, and it reminded me a ton of that book because the plotline itself is very similar. Also, the way I felt about these characters were very much the same, because with Thoughtless and this book, I felt the characters were lacking, and particularly with our main character, she was annoying and frustrating. So in total, I just didn't have a pleasant reading experience, so I won't be continuing on with the rest of this series. The next 2 books I have are part of the same duology, and that is the Vincent Boys duology by Abby Glines. The first book is the Vincent Boys, and the second book is the Vincent Brothers. For years, I've tried to like Abby Glines' books. I've read so many of her stories, but for some reason, I find they just aren't for me. And when it came to these 2 books, I felt the same way about both of them. For the romance factor in both of these books, I felt the angst was too much just because these characters weren't strong enough, and I don't really care for angst. Sometimes I love it, sometimes I don't mind it. In this case, I didn't like it because, yet again, the characters just were very one-dimensional, and so I felt the angst just didn't make sense. But anyway, for some reason, I keep trying to pick up Abby Glines' books. I don't like them, so I think I'm just going to stop trying to like Abby Glines' books. If you like her books, I am sorry. For some reason, I've tried to pick up her work and I just don't like it, so I'm just gonna give up now. The next book I have is Falling Crest High, and it's by Tijen. I was actually recommended this book by one of you guys, so I am sorry to say this was just not for me. I found I disliked these characters. I hated the relationships and the romance and the interactions just because they didn't settle right with me. The writing was okay. I didn't really focus on that too much just because I was so thrown off by the characters and the interactions and everything like that. Also, I don't really mind drama in books, but I found that something about the drama in this book, yet again, just left a bad taste in my mouth. So in general, definitely not my favorite book. The next book I have is Dream House by Marcia, or Cutie Pie Marcia here on YouTube. I do have a review up on my channel because I was actually sent this book in exchange for an honest review. Now, I was really excited for this book because I am a huge fan of Marcia, and also I love the fact she was coming out with a book other than a memoir, because no offense, I thought a lot of YouTubers were just coming out with books that were memoirs, and I thought it was very different of her to come out with a sort of YA horror psychological book. For me, I felt this book had potential. It just sounded very intriguing, but I think when you take a step back and look at the actual idea, it sort of doesn't make sense, especially after you read it. You're like, wait, what? But I think the thing that really got me was I personally felt the plotline to be a little lacking, and I also felt our main character just was very two-dimensional, and so the fact the plot line was lacking and our character was two-dimensional overall had me not really enjoying this book. The next book I have is Dark Light, and this is by S.L. Jennings. Now this author might seem familiar because if you have seen my favorite books of 2016, I actually had one of her books in my favorite books of 2016, which was Born Sinner. Now I did read Born Sinner first, and since I really enjoyed that book, I wanted to read some others she has written, and so I decided to pick up Dark Light because I believe this is her most popular book. I was very disappointed to find I did not enjoy Dark Light. I found it to be very cliche. I thought the romance was insta-lovey, and I found the main character I did not enjoy, and I also did not like the other characters as well. The only pro I had for this book was the fact I got to see how much this author has changed throughout the years, because Born Sinner is her newest release, and then I believe this is actually one of her oldest books. So seeing how much she has changed as an author was sort of a positive factor about this book, but I didn't necessarily enjoy this book on its own. The final book I have is The Medium, and this is by S.J. Archer. I have to say this book like hurts my soul just because I thought the first 2 chapters were really good. I was really into this book, and then after the first 2 chapters, it went downhill from there. The one major con I had for this book was the insta-love, and insta-love necessarily isn't a con overall for me. Sometimes I find certain books actually does insta-love right, but in this case, I found the insta-love took away from the substance of our characters and the story, and that's when I find insta-love is done wrong. Yet again, this book just had so much potential in the first 2 chapters. When the insta-love hit, it just took away from my enjoyment of the story, and so it's definitely one of my least favorite books of 2016. Those were my least favorite books of 2016. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know down below in the comment sections what you thought of the books I mentioned, or let me know what your least favorite books of 2016 were, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye!